But yeah, Super Bowl was good. What'd you think of halftime with Kendrick Lamar?
It was not targeted to me. So I tried very hard to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was like good in the fact that there was some meaning behind it. It wasn't just for show, but I just also wish that he could have done a little bit for show. So in terms of like the showmanship quality, I thought it was really lacking. You know, Rihanna 2 years ago was floating on platforms, dancing on floating platforms while pregnant, and he came out maybe doing 2 dance moves total. Usher, you know, killed it. But like Usher was more for my generation, so like I obviously like that halftime show more. Not necessarily so different, but a little bit more showmanshipy. But obviously, I loved the diss track being played. Serena Williams coming out, I thought was awesome. Doing the crip walk, it was fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was far better than after Pepsi screwed up with the Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake ordeal. Like the geriatric rock band tour that they then put on stage for several years. Oh my God. That was so boring to me. So way better than that, but I didn't think it was the greatest show.
Yeah, oh yeah. Didn't they do like the Rolling Stones after that too?
Yes, I thought Mick Jagger was gonna pop his hip out on stage. It was terrifying. Like Tom Petty, they had Tom Petty. Okay, listen, I'm down with putting Tom Petty in as background music. It's background music, you know. I don't want to jam out for 10 minutes to Tom. That's one Tom Petty song. There's going to be a guitar solo for 7 minutes.
Yep. I thought it was good. I thought the whole dissing of Drake the entire time on the national stage was awesome, and
I did like how he teased that song like 4 times throughout the night too.
Yeah. And like the girls in the background, the voice was like, "Are you really gonna do it?" And he does it, and he says Drake's name too. And then
I thought
you
it was
see
good.
the necklace he had?
The A minor necklace, yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Anything else about the Super Bowl? Anything else just in general before we get to our next segment?
Nah, let's turn into it.
All right. Let's go to our next segment. You all know what that is. What's on the whiteboard?
What's on the whiteboard?
So we have some games to recap here. Jay, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Let's sandwich it. Cooperstown and Waterville boys was my game of the week. Coop came out hot, put up 26 points in the first quarter. Waterville battled evenly most of the game in the second and third, but then Coop put some more distance, netting 24 points in the fourth quarter. I went and saw them play Hamilton. I was super excited because I saw Hamilton scheduled this week, and it was back-to-back nights of Cooperstown and Tully, 2 undefeated teams. Tully had 1 loss going into there, but it was out of section, so in seeding, it didn't count.
Right.
So I was excited to actually see them in person for this. And my thoughts on Cooperstown were confirmed seeing that game. They are super well-balanced, and their defense is insanely intense. The Hawkeyes hit 11 three-pointers to top Waterville in that game. Miles Nellen led them with 21 points. Christian Lawson added 15. Cooper Coleman added 14. Brody Murdoch added 14. Jamison Chrisman added 12. Like, it's you can't target one kid on this team. They're super unselfish, and they just play. They are going to be a monster to deal with. The Class C tournament is in their hands. If they want it, it's theirs. Waterville was only 1 for 10 behind the arc. That's going to be tough to get it back, especially when the other team hits 11. That's a 30-point difference for you. Jackson Ruane led the Eagles with 30 points, but this is kind of where the issues have been with Waterville. It's sort of been Jackson kind of holding the reins and carrying them, because the next scorer was Alan Morey with 12. No one else was in double digits. Cooperstown is, in my mind, the front runner for Class C at this moment. Super intense man-to-man defense. They have a nice trapping double team that they run out of that, and it's just non-stop. Jackson Chrisman, I don't know. Miles Nellen gets in the descriptions a lot because of the point totals, but Chrisman is a matchup nightmare. He's a stretch 5. He can hit the 3-pointer. He makes it a really tough matchup wherever you are. And when they played Hamilton, it was just raining. It was a scramble back and forth, and they could hit any shot. And that 1-3-1 zone, just you give up. You got to give up the wings in the corners at times, and they made him pay all night. And when I compared them to Tully is really led by Garrett Thompson. And although Miles Nellen leads Cooperstown, it's 5, 6, 7 kids really contributing. When Tully played, they didn't have the same defensive intensity. Now maybe they can find that, but Hamilton was able to kind of beat up on them, and you don't want to judge an entire team on one game, but Cooperstown is by far the favorite. They passed the eye test. They've crushed every opponent that they have come across. They are in the driver's seat to take the Section 3 title.
Yeah, I was watching, I saw some of the clips you posted to your story, and I was just watching and trying to get a sense of Cooperstown and whether or not Hamilton could compete with them. And the one thing that I noticed from your clips alone with Cooperstown is the ball movement on the offensive side was so impressive. Like, if they needed one more kick, they kicked it out. If they drove and then created a shot on the wing or in the corner, like, they did it. Like, just like you said, the intensity was there.
It's intense, unselfish basketball. It's what you always want to see. It's great basketball.
And when if teams are bought in like that, and that 5th, 6th, 7th player can contribute along the way on top of what your main core is doing, I mean, that's just a beautiful sight to see as a coach and just watching them in general. But I was very looking forward to that game as well. And from the looks of it, Cooperstown is definitely leading the way. Now, to play devil's advocate, though, some of the shots that they kick out to the beyond the arc, maybe they were hot that night. You could argue, what if only they cash in a third?
Well, yeah, that's definitely true, because Tully went cold. They only put up like 5 points in the third quarter. Now, is that from defensive pressure that they couldn't handle, or was it just an off shooting night?
Or a combo.
Right. Yeah, so, and that's what I mean. Like, you can't judge things by one game, but if and the thing about Cooperstown that shocks me the most is Charlie Lambert was there last year really leading the way, and it seemed like everything sort of rode through him, and they just, I don't know, they didn't necessarily share the ball as well, and I was shocked to see the progression of some of these other players step up. And now, like, I thought when Lambert left that they were going to have a down year, and instead they rallied this offseason and are having the best season ever.
That's awesome.
What was your game of the week?
So I had both of the DeRuyter versus Madison matchups. They played twice in the same week. It was a Tuesday-Friday matchup. And the reason why I circled these games is because of the fact that it was these two games were going to decide the CCL title. And they were two teams that were playing well, and two teams that I thought could give each other a little bit of a scare. And who knows, like we were talking about with basketball, you never really know until you know that one of these teams could beat each other. So the game one, both games went to Madison. They clinched the CCL title, so congrats to the Blue Devils for doing that. Game one, Madison won 64-52. DeRuyter had a 1-point lead going into half and were led by Daniel Hull, who had 16 points, and Jonah Baxter, who had 11 points. So again, it's kind of like what I'm talking about. DeRuyter has a 1-point lead going into half. Who knows? Maybe Madison made a couple adjustments. I don't really know for sure, but I'm assuming they did, and they pulled out the win by 12 points. Looks like based off the box score, Jacob Burns and Justin LeMunyon were just too much of a force in the second half. Jacob had 28 points. He had 3 threes. He was 7 for 7 from the free throw line. And Justin had a double-double in that game with 19 points and a whopping 22 rebounds. So if I had to guess, Justin Lemonnier was just scraping the boards with rebounds, and just the Riders just couldn't keep up from what it looks like on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Game 2, like I said, went to Madison as well. That final was 68-49. Exciting first quarter. Finished with a score of 22-21 in favor of Madison. From there, Madison didn't look back, winning sole possession, like I said, of the CCL title. Jacob Burns once again tore it up. He had 24 points. Justin Lemonnier had 9 points, a little bit less this time around, but again, had 10 rebounds on top of that. Dylan Doherty contributed a little bit more in this one. He had 13 points, 7 rebounds. And Gage Saltern also had 10 points and 7 rebounds for the Blue Devils. And then Daniel Hull for DeRuyter was leading them with another 16 points. And then this time, Jackson Millett was the second leading scorer with 13 points. So second game was a little bigger of a difference there, a 19-point difference. But, when it comes down to Madison, in my opinion, you and I have seen both of them. I believe you have to compete with them for 4 quarters. It sounds cliche-ish, but with Jacob Burns being the constant threat there, and then if you guard him tight, then you got to worry about Lemonnier in the paint, and you got to kind of pick your poison, if you will. But if you can be physical and be with Madison for 4 quarters, that's the way that, in my opinion, you got to beat them. But it's a lot easier said than done. Lemonnier is a big boy. Burns has got some size to him, some athleticism as well. He's a playmaker. So 2 very, very impressive games here. Fortunately for the Blue Devils, they came out on top for both. As of right now, they're still the 2 seed going into sectional. Sackett's Harbor is the number 1 seed. If those 2 teams match up, that's going to be one hell of a matchup for the final.
It is very interesting because I think the only way you can get by Madison is if you get them to run, but that might take Lemonnier out of the mix a little bit, but they have a balance of guards that can run and shoot.
Yeah.
Like you said, Saltern and Burns can rip you up, so they're much more adaptable. But if you get in the half court, they can cut you up, because what are you going to do? Double down on Lemonnier? Because he's just going to kick it and continue to use his post moves to rip you apart inside. They're a really tough matchup. And for me, Sackett's, I don't know. Sackett's is going to have a tough road if that's what ends up happening, and it's those 2 in the finals. Marcus Castine, great player, is a fast player, but I don't know if the Patriots have the size inside to cope with Lemonnier.
And it goes back to the physicality too. It's and it's with anyone too. It's not just with Sackett's Harbor. It's with any team that Madison's going to run into. Can they match the physicality for an entire 4 quarters?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And Sackett's Harbor hasn't had to do that too often this season. They've been putting teams away in the first half. So It'll be interesting to see. Does that mean they're so good that maybe they top Madison anyway and they put them away in the first half? I don't know. It'll be an interesting matchup.
Yep.
That's even if we get it, because they've got a tough road either way to make it there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so my final game of the week was for the girls, Lafargeville versus Indian River. We had the reigning Class D champions in the Red Knights and the reigning Class A champions in the Wolves facing off in Indian River. It looked, by the box score, looks like it was a very messy defensive game. Lafargeville ends up getting the win, getting to 40 points on the day. And their defense held Indian River to single digits, except when Indian River got 10 points in the 4th quarter. That's some suffocating defense, but also just Indian River also really just struggled to score. And Lafargeville did too, but they did it enough. Emmeline Barton, absolute stud, averaging 24.9 points per game. She had 16 points in this one with 7 steals. Her sister Margie Barton added 14 points, and Eliza Smith had 5 points and 13 rebounds to lead the Red Knights on the night. Indian River's story was being ice cold. They went 1 for 23 from behind the arc. Yeah,
Whoa,
that is
talk about living or dying by 3.
Yeah, that is not the way you want to go, but you're not going to win a game shooting like that. That is for sure. And that's where it's like, is it Lafargeville's defense that caused them to do that, or was it just not their night? They were 1 for 8 from the free throw line. So
are the rims broken?
Yeah, that's the big question. Allison Lamora led the way for the Wolves with 17 points, 13 rebounds on a double-double. She also had 4 blocks on the inside. Kira Lalonde and Layla White each had 4 points, and that's way below Kira's average. To put it in perspective, Indian River would go on to play Watertown IHC, who is another top Frontier League team. They would beat IHC 57-30. In the game against IHC, they were 11 for 30 from beyond the three-point line. So, they were still shooting threes. They're putting it up from deep. Yeah, and it's, like you said, it's live or die, and against Lafargeville, they got the wrong end of that one.
Damn. I mean, that's an impressive win for Lafargeville being a Class D team, because I'm looking right now at high school sports stat, and Indian River is currently the 6th seed with a BTM ranking of 0.8. I'm sorry, what is it? 0.803. So in terms of the BTM ranking, that's pretty darn high on the ranking scale. So that's a really, really good win for Lafargeville.
Yeah, Indian River's 15-4 on the season. I mean, their losses have come to General Brown, who is very good. Utica Notre Dame, who is, I think, the top A.
They're the one seed.
Two losses to General Brown, who are one of the top teams in Class B, and then one to Notre Dame. Utica Notre Dame, who has not lost a game in the section, is 14-0. So, that's Indian River is an impressive team, and Lafargeville going up there and getting that win, impressive on their own right. Yeah,
definitely. That's just also solidifying their spot even more as the 1 seed going in the sectionals, because they have a BTM ranking of 0.774, and Watertown IHC is the next one. They're at 0.533.
Yeah, they're locked in. There's no movement there that's going to happen. And as much as we can complain about the BTM in other ways, that one's right. There's no doubt about that one.
Yeah. It is interesting to note, though, talking about girls basketball, especially at the Class D level, Belleville Henderson was the 5 seed as of right now, and they opted not to play into sectionals. So as of right now, you're looking at 7 total teams playing in the Class D girls bracket, and haven't heard anything about line, but they're sitting at 1-17 right now. So who knows? They might not wait. They might not go too.
Yeah, and now with the seeding meeting pushed back a day. Typically, this break is when sectional starts. The seeding meeting used to be on Sunday. Round 1 was Tuesday. Round 2, kind of quarterfinals, was Thursday. Your semifinals were Saturday, and then you'd be looking at the finals. And now we're pushing back the seeding meeting to Thursday. The first round of games is going to be Friday and Saturday for most teams. In Class D, there's no need. There's only 7 teams going to this tournament. We're already in the quarterfinals. So we're going to play the quarterfinal round on Tuesday, semifinals Thursday, championship Saturday.
I'm hoping to get to OCC and work those games again.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
OCC is an interesting place. I think as a fan, it's cool because it's big. I don't like it because it's too big. It's like too spacious. Even when you're doing the big schools, I know there's like enough room for the big schools to attend. But it's just a chasm that you're playing in. I feel like no matter how loud the fans are, it doesn't feel loud in there.
I get that. I feel like, though, to counter that, I know we're talking about the biggest class size for Liverpool CNS. That was a hell of an environment during that game.
Yeah, it was. And just I remember being in the other gym there in Allen, in the Allen Gymnasium, which is too small for those big schools. Although the sectional finals for the girls were there for Class A, like that Cortland matchup, it was nuts. I mean, it was like, it kind of stunk because you're in a smaller gym, and I get like the optics of that aren't great. But I'll tell you, the atmosphere in there was incredible. I mean, I was doing the PA for that game, and I felt like the entire Cortland section was on my back while we were calling the game. It was awesome. I mean, it was one of the coolest feelings. Yeah, it was. The energy was just amazing, and I think it would be cool if there was a place that kind of met in the middle of those two, where it wasn't just this vacant space. But it's a cool time regardless, and I do love playing in a big college facility. I think it definitely makes an impact for the kids, the coaches, the players. Definitely has that feel,
and it also plays into the experience too. Like,
absolutely.
That's just win or lose. It's a memory. It's a game. No matter what, if you're on the winning side or the losing side, you're gonna remember it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
The only gripe I have about that place, the SRC arena, is the fact that the scoreboard is all the way on the other side of the the gym.
Yes. Yeah. The detailed scoreboard.
They should have put it if you're facing, like, from the perspective of the scorers table, right? You're facing the other side. You're facing the entrance of SRC arena.
Yeah.
If they put the scoreboard to the right on the closest wall, that would make more sense to me. But I do understand they use it for track and field and all the other stuff. So can't be picky.
Yeah. And we'll see. You know, they contract out those facilities on, multi-year deals. So it's not going to stay there, and it'll move, and we'll complain about something else from a different facility. That's for sure. So, in the grand scheme of things, it is a very nice facility. I like it. I think it has the same problem as like going to the Dome for football. Yeah. And like, it's awesome. And I love to play on this because, Syracuse football plays on here. This is a college facility. I think that experience is amazing. In terms of an entertainment and event standpoint, it's too big. You can't fill it up, and it sounds empty. No matter how many people show up for it,
Yeah.
But I would agree, it's still cool because you're playing on that college court, I think that's what it is. It's about playing on the bigger court. It's about playing on a court that has meaning because, like, hey, this is our next step. This is the next level. So it's cool to play on something that represents that next level because we're bigger than that.
Right. All right, let's get to the next point on our whiteboard here. And we're just going to highlight some other games that are worth noting here. I wanted to give a shout out to the Cato Meridian boys team for going to Hamilton and beating them in an OT thriller. Beat them 79-74. Shout out for Hamilton, Luke Langle, freshman, hitting 3 free throws at the end of the game to send it into overtime. So talk about clutch. On top of this win here for Cato, they went on to defeat Ontech Charter 68-59. Perry Plank had 34 points. Embry George and Brody Smith both had double-doubles against Hamilton. Embry George had a double-double against Ontech with 23 points and 15 rebounds. And I was kind of looking into this team a little bit more with the fact that they beat Hamilton, because that was kind of one of those games I was looking at. And as a result, Cato went to number 5 in the rankings, and they are now 7 because of Hamilton's win against Tully, which I could see that causing a little controversy. But when I was looking at Cato's roster, this stood out to me like crazy. They have 2 freshmen. Embry George is 6'5", according to High School Sports Stats, and I looked at the photo that they have on their team page, and he looks 6'5" in my opinion. And Perry Plank is another freshman who is 6'4", so my height. And then Brody Smith is a sophomore at 6'3". So you have these kids for the next at least 3 years, because Brody's a sophomore, with 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". I mean, you talk about size and athleticism, and the fact that these three kids were the top three performers in back-to-back games, in back-to-back meaningful games. I mean, if I don't know who Cato's coach is, but you got to be just smiling ear to ear seeing these three underclassmen doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. Perry Plank is an absolute monster. And the Cato girls are also doing really well this season. They just got a big win over Skinny Atlas. So
nice.
Cato, I think, is someone who is going to sit in the middle of the table for seedings, and everyone should be absolutely terrified of.
1,000%. Like, that 7-8 matchup, if sectionals were to start tomorrow, that 7-8 matchup of Cato, Beaver, River, like, that would be insane. Or no, I'm sorry. 7 and 10, right? It would be 8 and 9.
7 and 10, yeah.
Yeah, so then it would be Cato, Weed Sport. Still, I mean, that's a 13 and 5 team playing a 12 and 5 team.
Yeah.
You know? So this Class C boys sectionals is going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah. I think there's Cooperstown, and then I think there are a lot of really good teams right after that. You got Tully, Waterville. Hamilton has their moments where they can be in that mix. Cato. They're all just kind of packed together where that whole middle ground, anything can happen.
Right. And then you got Frankfurt and Riskin in the CSC. Like, hey, don't forget about us.
Yeah.
You know?
And they play a good brand of ball too. And it's going to be an interesting dynamic to see where things land with those. Because some of them have played each other throughout this season, so they're already familiar, which I think is an interesting part when we get to sectional time, is that a lot of times you're facing these teams that you have no idea. You know, you may have gone and watched them, but you haven't played against them. Some of these teams, it's going to be the second matchup. It's going to be the third. It might be the fourth matchup. Not for the season, the boys, but, you know, it could have gotten to that point, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the same is true if I'm looking ahead to some games that I find interesting. The Class C girls are in the same boat. Hamilton kind of sits up on top, but like Cooperstown is playing West Canada today. Still no results posted for that. But Weed Sport is right in that mix. Like those Cooperstown, the top four of the Class C girls, it's anyone up there. I have no idea who's winning the sectional tournament for that, because those four teams are all really good. Sandy Creek just beat Beaver River and like came out on top to win the Frontier League tournament. They came out real strong and had a dominant lead, but Beaver River just chipped right back into it. So like that makes me think that maybe Sandy Creek isn't up to that task of those teams. Like Dolgeville is 7 and 11 and sitting at a 6 seed, and they're definitely, I think that the BTM might have that correct. Like they've had to play an absolutely brutal season. Their strength of schedule is insane. And they have some talent in that team. You look at Tully, like if I'm Tully, I'd be annoyed because I'm sitting at 12 and 5 and I'm sitting behind Dolgeville. So you have like that next echelon of teams that are in that mix, but the top four, absolutely nasty.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just some other games to shout out here. Sackett's Harbor had a nice win against Sandy Creek. They won 45-39. Marcus Castine lit it up with 25 points. Mount Markham has won 7 in a row with a big 65-64 win over Holland Patton. There is a crazy game between two A schools. Camden at Oneida with a final of 91-88. The game went into double overtime, and Isaac Lynch had, wait for it, 48 points and 17 rebounds.
Jeez, that's having a day. That is having a day.
Just a couple other notes here that I have, and then Jay, you can go through yours if you have any. Wanted to give a shout out to the girls teams for McGraw and Stockbridge Valley for clinching co-league titles. As we said before in our first episode, I highly disagree with the BTM. I've seen both of them play. They should not be the top or the bottom two teams in the sectional play, in my opinion, but it is what it is. Watertown IHC girls had a nice win over South Jefferson. They won 45-36. One other game for boys Class C I was looking at was Cincy at Faith Heritage. Faith Heritage won that one 62-51. When I looked at it, there was no stats posted, so sorry if I can't shout anyone out. And just to kind of last point here, last thing to jot down is the fact that, like we were talking about with the boys Class C tournament, Oriskany has won 7 in a row. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all these top 8 of the boys for Class C. They're playing well. Like obviously Hamilton had a couple losses, but they had that big emotional win against Tully, like you said, because of
some of those losses came with injury bugs playing a factor.
Right, and then with their win against Tully, that was for Coach. What's his last name again? Blackford.
Yeah.
Blackford. He that was his last regular season game, is it? From what it sounds like in terms of him retiring, right? So
yeah,
nice emotional win there at home.
They did a ceremony before the game. It had a lot going on, and that's where I don't want to compartmentalize Tully too much because there was a lot working against them. There was a lot of people there for Blackford's kind of last game, potentially there. 43 seasons of coaching, 29 of them being at Hamilton. He went and coached at FM for a while in between and then came back. I think it's 5 sectional titles, 2 state titles for Coach Blackford in his tenure. And not only that, they had a countdown going for Drew Baker hitting 1,000 points. And he hit it on one of his last shots in the game. So an emotional breakdown there. They did call timeout to honor it. But I will say... it was very fast. I think it might have been under the minute timeout mark. He hugged, his family came out of the stands. They hugged, they gave him a ball. There was not a photo op. And in the middle of the game, they went up, it went back into the stands, and we kept playing the game. So, shout out to Coach Blackford for doing that the right way, I guess.
What are the odds? What are the odds that your final point and your little rant there about that influenced how quickly that went? Just
I had 0. Coach Blackford does not care about my opinion whatsoever when it comes to that. I am 100% sure.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. Shout out to Oriskany and West Canada Valley. They take their share of the CSC titles for girls basketball. I assume that the CSC, and this is where I don't shout out, I don't post those because each league is very different in how they structure themselves and how they work when it comes to handing out their titles. Some have a tournament at the end, some just crown a regular season champ, some give co-champs, some don't count it if you merge with another team. It's all kind of a confusing mess, so I try to just stay out of it because every league works on their own. The only thing I want to point out is that today, the day of our recording, not the day that we'll be pushing this out, but was also the volleyball finals. Our Class C and D volleyball finals. Awesome matchups. The worst part of today for me personally was that I was planning on watching these games online, and BOCES has decided that today was a good day to reset all of their Wi-Fi and do a whole bunch of maintenance on the networks. So CVA has Huddle in their gym, and it's down. And so we couldn't watch any of it. Not
for both games.
For both games. Not their fault, because BOCES decided that and definitely did not check with anybody on whether that was going to impact it. But yeah. So awesome job by Section 3 Sports to cover the Sandy Creek Cincy game. But man, the Beaver River game did not get a whole lot. There was a news station out by Mount Markham's way that was kind of doing Facebook posting updates so I can follow along via text on there, sort of. But two phenomenal games. Mount Markham, top seeded Mount Markham took on number 2 seed Beaver River. Both teams were undefeated in the regular season. This was the championship game last year. So we had a total redo, and it went down in epic fashion as well. Beaver River ran out to a lead in every single set, and Mount Markham just would not go away. Beaver River claimed sets 1 and 2, but Mount Markham would rally to close that gap, taking sets 3 and 4, coming from behind in every single set. Then we go into the 5th set. Beaver River jumps out to a 5-0 lead. The 5th set is only played to 15. They're a third of the way there. But of course, the Mustangs would come back and tie it up relentlessly, getting it tied up at 13. 13 to 13. Mount Markham then takes the lead, 14-13. Beaver River ties it up. Mount Markham takes the lead, 15 to 14. Beaver River ties it up. Then it's Beaver River's turn to take the advantage and go back, finally closing it out on a service ace in heartbreaking fashion too. The ace gets hit, and it's one of those awkward ones that's like right at the chin. So like, can you set it? You almost want to bump, but it's in that awkward spot. So you get the broken fingers set attempt, and for an ace to win it 19-17 in set 5. Beaver River goes down as your Class C girls volleyball champions for the winter volleyball season.
God,
repeat, back to back.
I can't even imagine just being a normal fan watching that, especially the back and forth and just the anticipation of the ball floating in the air and then like the next hit over the net, and you're just like, oh my god.
And speaking of great atmospheres, man, Central Valley Academy was playing host, and that place was rocking. I mean, I could hear it in the videos that Section 3 Sports was posting. Super loud, great atmosphere.
That's awesome.
Just a nuts back and forth matchup. I mean, yeah. If I'm a parent in there, that's years off your life.
That's just like you're looking like this, like through the cracks of your fingers. Like, I don't want to look, but I have to look.
So it goes a little long. That pushes our game time of Cincy Sandy Creek back. But hey, we want some drama in our own right. So top seeded Cincy takes on Sandy Creek. Cincy is the reigning Class D champions. Sandy Creek getting back this time. Fabius was it last year. Cincy gets out to a 10-4 lead early on, kind of establishing their routine. Sandy Creek says no. The Comets come back, slowly chipping away, and then absolutely put the halt on them in the late teens, go on to win it 25-19. Comets take the first set. Second set was tie after tie, absolutely back and forth the entire match. No one was able to get a lead until Cincy gets the final point to go up 25-23. They claim set 2. Third set, Comets trail most of the set. Then come out, rally from behind, grab a 23-21 lead, 2 points away from winning the set. But Cincy goes on and gets 4 straight points to win it 25-23.
Wow.
Fourth set, Sandy Creek gets the lead early, pretty much leads the entire way from beginning to end, but Cincy keeps fighting back, keeps nibbling, but Sandy Creek outlasts him, wins the fourth set 25-23. We go into set number 5, again only to 15 points. The final set, the Lions are down all game. They come back, tie it up at 13, and win the next 2 points to grab the title. Again, back-to-back titles for the Cincinnati Red Lions.
Those are, when you, and like, just in general too, as a complete outsider, when you're looking at sectional finals or just any championship game, you want a good game. And these two were just absolutely phenomenal. Like, both going to 5 sets. You got a battle of undefeateds in the Class C with Mount Markham and Beaver River. And just that, I can't even imagine being there in that environment, just watching the back and forth. That's awesome.
Yeah, and watching some of these points happen. I mean, Cincy and Sandy Creek had some epically long rallies going back and forth, and you could see these, what impresses me the most is these are, 16, 15 to 18-year-old kids. The pressure could not be higher. I mean, this is an absolute pressure cooker. And in the middle of the point, you can see these outside hitters, these setters, making adjustments in the moment. It's not even a coaching adjustment. Yes, there were coaching adjustments that definitely happened. Where they wanted to push the ball on service game, but to watch them, there were several points where I'm watching and Cincy's hitting and Sandy Creek's blocks are just getting to him. It is block. Then we have to recycle this point, and then it's a roll shot to the middle. They dig it up, it comes back, and then we do a little change up soft tip over the top of the block to get the point. Watching them just go through everything to make those adjustments in the midst of a point, super impressive. The Lucky Ducks at Beaver River definitely came up big, and Cincy claiming the lead too. Awesome performances, and congratulations to those two programs.
That was a pretty cool story and a funny story with the Lucky Duck there for Beaver River, and just the fact that a team was sharing a bond and it was part of their culture of just a little rubber duck. It's pretty funny.
I think it's so funny how those things come out of nothing. It was a duck that they got in Spanish class, and then it becomes the thing.
Yep, that's awesome. Well, congrats to all four of those teams for great seasons, especially Mount Markin being undefeated all the way until the end. Not sure when the regionals are for Beaver River and Cincy.
There actually isn't. So that's the winter season is done for volleyball. If you want to play
it's just sectionals?
Yes. If you want to play for a state title, then you have to play in the fall.
Oh,
so there is this weird divide of fall volleyball teams that will play and then keep going on to try to win a state title. And then there are teams often, and I think this is why there's only 4 divisions in winter volleyball, because a lot of those bigger schools are just going to play at that time. For the smaller schools, it's way harder to play fall ball because the amount of kids that you need to field that team, at the smaller schools, you're typically fielding 1 or 2. Well, if you share with soccer, you need to have, you need 6 kids minimum to be playing volleyball. You need 11 kids minimum for soccer. That's 17 kids that you're going to need to have that are athletic and playing sports, which means you really need a pool of about 25 active kids to pull from.
Yep.
If you're talking playing in the winter, you're battling against basketball. If you got 14 kids, you can have both.
Right. That makes sense. So in terms of our main discussion here, we were thinking in terms of what else could we talk about in terms of our main area of discussion, and we came up with the idea of the orientation of leagues. And we were talking about the fact that we got one suggestion, the fact that should other divisions do an end of the season tournament to name your champion of the league. I think it's interesting, just hopping on that point real quick, but at the same time, a question came up when we were recording here. If your league does a tournament like that, like the Frontier League, where, correct me if I'm wrong, they have a regular season champ and then the end of the year tournament champ, right?
Yes.
Okay. So a question came up in my head, which was, if you do an end of the year tournament for your league, should those count towards your BTN?
They do.
No, I know they do, but I'm saying, should they moving forward?
Right. Well, and that's the interesting aspect of those teams that are participating all now have earned a larger stake in the strength of schedule because they're being put against tougher opponents at the end. So a lot of teams that I know, leagues that I know that do the end of season tournament, they typically will go, the top 4 teams play each other, and then the bottom teams will also play a tournament against each other, which also means all of your schools are playing each other 3 times. You have a chance of seeing each team 3 times throughout the season.
Right.
Not only that, but now you're going to go into sectionals, and that's where I'm saying you might see that team for a fourth time on the season.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I also think oftentimes the regular season, and I think this is how the Frontier League works, but don't quote me on this. You guys can hit us in the comments and let us know for sure. But I'm pretty sure the regular season title is just in name only. So you get to say, hey, we're the regular season champs. You get the banner if you win the tournament.
Okay.
I believe is how they run it. And that's how it is in a few other leagues that I've seen. So the benefit of the tournament is you don't have to, there's no co-champ. You got one at the end. You're not basing things off of, different records throughout. Like, you got to be a team that wins clutch games. On the other hand, a team can get hot and a 500 team can be your league champ because they won 2 games at the end of the season.
Right.
So is that where you want to hang the banner? Do they deserve that, even though the regular season champ did so well? Leagues in their own right are a bit interesting to me.
Sure.
to say the least.
This was definitely a learning curve for me when I came up here and started learning about how, leagues are formulated and just how they're orientated, but also the fact that, for me growing up, we never called sectionals because for me, my sectional is our county championship. It's section 11, which is Suffolk County. Mm-hmm. So we don't call it sectionals. We call it county championships. We call it counties. Yeah. So when I had to relearn or learn about all this new terminology and structure, it's complicated.
Yeah, I think it's so hard because we think of things in the micro level versus the macro, and most of these decisions are getting made in the macro, right? Where it's big picture. So first, you have to look at the sections themselves. The state has decided or determined, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association has determined how many sections exist, where those borders are, and there you are. Teams can switch sections if you're on those fringe areas, which I think is also interesting, that there is a flux. It has to be approved by both sections, I believe, for that to happen, for you to change. And so from sections, you have all those different decisions getting made, but even outside of the sections, the state determines the class. So the state at the beginning of the year determines your class rank, whether you're AAA, AA, A, B, C, or D, based on the number of schools that are going to participate in that sport across the entire state. And I think it's easy to get kind of egocentric in that, and you're wondering why our school is a C or a D, or maybe we bumped to a B this year, based on your enrollment probably not changing much, or possibly going down, and now you are going up a class. And you're going to be, some of these schools that are right on that border are because so many schools playing them across the state is in flux. So some schools there might be a lot of girls basketball teams across the state, but there might not be as many softball schools across the state. And so that line is going to adjust because the state decides the class number based on evenly distributing all of the schools across the state into those sections, into those classes. So class AAA will have so many schools. Class AA is going to have so many schools. And it's going to be the same amount of schools as their attempt, right? So like class AAA, let's say there's, 600 schools in class AAA. Probably not. That's a lot of AAAs. Yeah, right. But like maybe that's how it goes across all of the sections, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, your section is independently then having to align to those class standards, because the state has decided that out of all of these teams, we're going to bracket them so that it's even across the state, but it's not even per section. And so that's why this year you see so many teams in Class C and so few teams in Class D. because in other sections there are more Class D teams and fewer Class C because of where they drew that number, right?
Okay.
And so it's all sectioned off based off the entire state, not the section. So we're like, why are there 20-something teams in Class C, but there's only 7-8 teams in Class D? It's because it's across the state. There's the same amount.
Right.
It's just in our section we happen to have that group of number. You know,
especially for Class D size schools across the state, more and more of them are merging. Mm-hmm. So then by rule, you got to go up a class if the math works out.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what that impact will be, because you do have to like fill out that paperwork ahead of time. So there is some slight adjustments. And when you do merge, you take a percentage. You take the total enrollment of the larger school and you add a percentage. I believe it's 20% of the enrollment of the merged school. It does not matter who the host school is. You automatically take the larger and you add 20% of the smaller. And then that's your total enrollment, and then you put it in there. That you can definitely see that impact Class D, because if they're making the choice based on how many Class D schools there are, when they merge, the line is not very big for to divide Class D and C. That could bump a school easily to Class C, which is where you might also see this kind of bubble effect of more Class C schools.
Right.
Yeah, so they're all set up that way, and that's where I think things get even weirder, because there's not a whole lot of transparency when it comes to each league. The section has some transparency. The section has presidents, has committees. They're making decisions. Each league will also have sports reps and have a league president and a league representative. But a lot of these decisions kind of get made behind closed doors, and we don't see necessarily what's happening with those. For example, the OHSL actually does have a little bit of a website and history on the New York State Public High School Athletic Association website. They were founded in the 1920s. They expanded in 1971. They have more teams now than they ever have, but there's a long history. The Frontier League was founded in 1931. They have a little history on there. The CSC, nothing. Can't find anything. The CCL, nothing. Can't find anything. So how did they get started? And I think the debate here comes into how these leagues are aligned and why ends up being like some strange political reasoning through some of their own kind of discussions and things that were happening in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. All right, so if we take a look at this, these are all of the schools in Section 3. This is from Class AAA down to Class D. Obviously, there are some hubs of space, and not everyone in the Syracuse area I could put on top of each other because we had to zoom so far out. But you can see, like, geographically, some of these leagues really do make sense. And obviously, your classes are going to impact your leagues too, because what are we trying to do? We want to try to provide the most equal and competitive opportunities for every school and their athletes, right? So you don't really want Class AAA schools to play a Class D school, because on the most common occurrences, that's not going to be super competitive. You know, the Class AAAs have just so many more kids to pull from. They're going to have more athletes there. So you want to stay within your classes. I think everyone can accept that and probably agrees with that. We can get into a discussion of how private schools work within that, but that's, I think, enough for another segment.
that would be the only point on the whiteboard, and we can do an entire segment just on that.
Yeah.
It blows my mind, because on Long Island they have their own league, but that's
right.
Another day.
So we see here that, like, most of these decisions based on your league are not only opportunity-wise, but also just geographically, right? Like, the Frontier League are all the teams surrounding Watertown and in the Watertown area. Mm-hmm. Makes sense, right?
Yep.
The CSC makes its home mostly in the Utica area. And then your OHSL, your SACL, all of those make their homes in the Syracuse area. And then the CCL is kind of this weird conglomeration of schools that didn't fit in anywhere else and were really small. Now, there are a few outliers within this that make things interesting. And those outliers especially are interesting because of everyone is going to have the borderland, that they're just going to be the odd person out regardless of what section they play in. And for us, if we take a look here, the biggest ones are Cortland, actually. You have Cooperstown, who is on that fringe. You have Dolgeville, and then Town of Webb. But Cortland is one that's really unique because they're the only big school down in that area. So they're having to travel a whole lot more than pretty much every other school to compete kind of on their level. Cortland and Homer are both down there, but Cortland's the further south team.
Right.
So for them, like, they could play maybe in Section 4 and end up playing, those Ithacas. Is Ithaca in Section 4? Actually, I think it's just...
I think they're a AAA size school, too.
Right. So, like, you could play some of these bigger schools that are there, but instead of being the southernmost school, you're going to be the northernmost school. So, like,
it's pick a side of the coin.
Right. Exactly. So that gets interesting in its own right. And if we take a look at this from just the kind of small school perspective, this map just has our Class C's and D's and our makeups. And so when you take a look at these fringe schools for each of the leagues, Sandy Creek ends up being kind of the fringe school of the Frontier League, because they're the furthest south, and they're getting close to where Oswego and Fulton are holding in. But because of their size, it makes more sense to kind of travel up to this Northland and play here.
More of a direct route, too.
Right. And it looks weird because if you take a look at Old Forge looks like they should be a Frontier League team. They're so close to Beaver River and Louville. You would think that they would be a Frontier League team. However, fun fact, the Louville and Sandy Creek are connected via a road that goes through that lovely grassland. Old Forge has the 5 Pounds wilderness of forest between them and Louville. You have to travel down that road and back up to get to Louville. It's over an hour drive from Old Forge to Louville.
I wouldn't want to do that work drive in the winter either.
Yeah, so you'd think like, okay, Old Forge, Town of Webb is up north, so the Town of Webb School District should be in the Frontier League. It's a longer commute for them to be in the Frontier League than for them to be in the CSE. So that's part of kind of they're one of those fringe schools that they'd have to make that decision, and for them to go to Watertown would be far longer for them to go to some of these CSE teams down in the Utica area. Dolgeville starts to get further out, getting past Little Falls, so they're the fringe there, but they're not too far away from Utica to make that work. And then Cooperstown is to the south and the east as well, so they have to make that. They're just on that. They're the furthest ones out. And then you have McGraw and Cincy, but at least they're kind of close together. Cooperstown is the closest C to Cooperstown is Waterville and Hamilton. So there's a little bit more of a journey for those teams, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, let's take a look at actually how the leagues are set up. Because this is where you start to scratch your head. And I say that weird politics comes into play. So the current league setup is in the pink up top is your Frontier League for C's and D's. Nice, kind of concise. Lots of snow, lots of driving through snow up in the North Country. Okay? The green area where we have Cato and Port Byron and Weedsport all kind of lumped together. We have a bunch of private schools as well with Mater D, On Tech Charter, and MPH, as well as Faith Heritage. But there's your OHSL over there with Tully and Fabius kind of being on the bottom with Lafayette nearby. That's your sort of Syracuse league. And then if you notice, the other three are some super wonky shapes. So you have one division of the CSC, which includes Town of Webb, and goes out to Dolgeville. You have Frankfurt, but then it literally cuts a line between Oriskany and New York Mills. So that Oriskany is in one division and New York Mills is in the other, even though they're probably the two closest schools on this entire map.
Right.
Westmoreland is also divided out of there, who is also very close to Oriskany. They're on the other side of the CSC. And if you take a look at this other part of the other division of the CSC, you have Cooperstown, Waterville, Suquoit, Westmoreland, Morrisville, Hamilton. Right in the middle of the CSC is the CCL, is half of the CCL. That is the weirdest drawn line imaginable.
Yeah.
And then those three teams right in the midst of the CSC for the CCL go down south to play the other four that are kind of grouped together within the CCL.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of these decisions were, like I said, political and competition based. So Madison, Stockbridge, Brookfield found themselves struggling to compete with the likes of Watervilles, Cooperstowns, Hamiltons, and Morrisvilles. And every school has definitely had their ups and downs and their heydays and some kind of low lights. But I think that's why the CCL was kind of formed, was it was these sort of smaller fringe schools that were in much more rural areas and were smaller in enrollment.
Right.
But all of these leagues can change. Section 3 just says that every league has a representative. So you have to go to the section to get approved as a league, but all these leagues can change. Stockbridge used to be in the CSC. Madison, I believe, used to be in the CSC.
I feel like with the I'm looking at the map on my screen here. It's almost like if you were to take the CSC, the blue loop, the blue loop, if you were to cut that in half at the Morrisville line, so like if you get Oriskany into the dark blue circle, right, and then take.
Are you ready? I've done this. I know exactly what you're saying, right? So what would it look like if these leagues were just restructured?
So what I was thinking was, if you were to, could you go back to the other one real quick? If let's say, because you still have your two CSCs, right? If you take Morrisville and Hamilton, combine them into the CCL, and then you can have two CCL divisions, okay? So then you have CCL Division 1, which will be
sort of like
Morrisville,
an east
Hamilton,
and west, or a north and south.
Yeah. So then it would be Morrisville, Hamilton, Stockbridge, Madison, Brookfield. Right. And then on the other side, you got DeRuyter, OD, McGraw, Cincy. And then if you're number one in both of those leagues, then you play for the league title. Or I'm sorry, in those divisions, then you play for the league title at the end.
Right. That would be a cool setup. And so I drew my own little lines of like, if things could get restructured and what would make the most sense restructured for every team in this group based on travel. It's not going to happen. I am well aware of that.
Yep.
But, right, if you group those teams to the south, right, the drive to Cortland area from like Stockbridge or Suquoit is a pretty long drive, right? So Stockbridge down to McGraw is like an hour, 15, hour, 20 minutes, right? If you restructure, you can't leave those four teams on their own. You can't leave Cincy, McGraw, Ovia, and DeRuyter out on their own. A 4-team league isn't really a viable situation. Right? So I cut the line in that southern Syracuse area of Fabius, Tully, Lafayette. All right. The travel from Lafayette down to Cincy is probably an hour, maybe a little bit less. So we've condensed, I think it might even be 45 minutes. Right? We've condensed the travel times of everybody. Now this light green league everyone's within, except for Cooperstown, who's an outlier, but you can't leave the outliers alone, right? So that you drag them into this group. The travel between every team in there is like, maybe a 45-minute max. Cooperstown gets a little bit longer. And then you take a look at the CSC up north, and Westmoreland, Oriskany, New York Mills all being in the same division, all being in the same league makes sense. And then, unfortunately, Town of Webb is the outlier, and they're just going to have to make that trip. And they're close to Remsen.
Going to have an outlier.
Right. And you can divide them in divisions, right? Like you could have a North division of the 5 teams of Town of Webb, Remsen, Poland, West Canada, Dolgeville, and then the other ones. You could break them up that way. Yep. But now, why wouldn't this happen, even though it means shorter commute times for every team in the league? Exactly. The reason is politics. The reason is certain schools have a little bit more self-value than others and don't want to drop their level of competition by playing these other teams. Some of them, if you draw this line, one of the greatest battles in the OHSL is Onondaga and Lafayette. Super rivals. No one's going to go for them splitting up and leaving that league. That's the history.
Or even Tully and Fabius too.
Yes, like that. Like Tully and Fabius would stay in the same league. And I think that would be fine, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
But you're gonna get these things that are history based. That we historically have played these teams, and so that's who we're going to play.
Right.
I know there were conversations about this in Hamilton when I went there, because we were a strong basketball school. We pushed ourselves to have to play. They wanted to up the competition. So although Hamilton was a Class D, they wanted to play in a league that had almost all Class Cs because they wanted more competition. So then when it came time to sectionals, although your record may not have been as good, theoretically you were more battle tested because of that competition. And so you won't see it because of those politics that are in play, which is interesting given the conversations going on at a state level at the moment about regionalization. And the more we see teams merge, this is a conversation that is going to be coming up, whether we want it to or not, because schools are going to be looking to merge their sports programs more and more often as enrollment continues to decline across the state.
Yep.
The CCL, to put it in perspective, is in danger. And they need some sort of help to stay viable and some restructuring. And perhaps we should be looking at this as a future endeavor to see where we want these groups to go and end up as we look at all these teams across the state. A lot of these programs, especially at the Class D level, are running out of kids to play. And will be looking to merge to have more active opportunities. And there are advantages to it. And it's interesting because when you talk about school mergers, one of the biggest things to overcome, and the reasons most schools turn it down, most communities turn down merging school programs, is because of sports. Because they start to think, my kid's not going to play because the teams will have more kids to pull from. Not that we'll be more competitive. Not that, hey, maybe my kid needs to work harder to make the team.
Right.
It's, my kid won't play, so I don't want this to happen. But that joining of resources for athletics can provide more opportunities. If you take a look at Richfield Springs and ODY, Richfield Springs, they're a Section 4 school now. They used to be a part of the CSC. They used to have just one sport every season. But when you merge with another school, you up your pool of athletes, you can start playing. Instead of just being a basketball school, you could have basketball and volleyball for both boys and girls. There are opportunities to be had there that I think now is kind of the time to be discussing, especially in some of these smaller school areas, especially in some of these Class D schools that are looking at their enrollments and their programs and saying, hey, we've got 7 kids playing basketball.
Right.
Can we go play? Yeah. Is this sustainable? Yeah. How do you hold kids accountable too? It's tough.
Right. Because especially at the lower levels, like as a coach, what you get is what you got.
Mm-hmm.
But like the other thing too that I had to adjust to of coming up here from Long Island is just the fact that Section 3, and the other sections can argue for this too, but Section 3 is just so large in territory size. Like,
yes,
Portland and Carthage could be playing in a sectional game. Like, that distance is just incredible.
Yeah.
Like,
I know the North Country like always feels left out because a lot of the power within determining every league gets a representative at the section level, right? So if you take a look, you have the Frontier League. When you look at the Syracuse area, you're talking 2-3.
Right.
4 different leagues that have an impact there. So where are games going to get played? They're going to end up in the Syracuse area. Sometimes they'll shift to Utica. But are we going to make all of these teams travel to Cortland? Well, if all of the teams up north want to travel, have to travel down to Cortland, that's a rough trip.
Yeah.
Right? If we put games up in Watertown, if we play them up north to try to accommodate, that's a long trip for those teams in the south. So Oneida, Syracuse area is kind of like that middle ground, but then those teams get a huge advantage when it comes to travel time for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a huge region.
The size of it and the fact that you start kind of mixing in the fact that the mountains kind of play into factor here, like it's totally different than what we did growing up in our league, where my senior year they completely restructured it, where for my school we were in the mixture in one of those areas where we were the smaller one and consistently playing the A's in our league, but we would only play like 2 or 3 B's because we were a B school.
Right.
And then when it comes down to sectional time or county time, more than half our league was going to go play someone else, and then they got curb stomped.
Yeah.
So it's like they restructured it, and I get it. It's Long Island, it's smaller distance, commute's not that bad, so on and so forth. But they made the leagues determined by class size.
Yeah.
And then for us, we had the perfect amount of Bs, where the first 2 weeks of the season were round robin. So you played each other once, and then after the round robin, every week was a 3-game series. You played Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Now this is for baseball I'm talking specifically. And it was fantastic. It was great. It was so much fun. But in terms of like the outlier school that you're talking about, we were the outlier school.
Yeah.
Because everyone close to my school was an A or borderline AA. All the B's and the C's are out east. So our shortest bus ride was like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And the farthest one was almost an hour and a half going to Manitowoc. So I get the fact of being an outlier, but sometimes you're going to have to be that outlier for a week. And that's why a lot of the Northern Country Section 3 teams will play a lot of Section 10 teams. Right. Just to get games in.
Right. And that steamrolls to my problem where I was talking about last time with the BTM. You know, it relies on those cross-league matchups, but Cincinnati is not going to play Lafargeville.
Huh.
Where are they going to play? That's a 4-hour commute. They got to find. If this is going to be the case, we have to start structuring our games in tournaments to be in the middle ground so that these teams can meet.
Yep.
On purpose. Maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to start hosting tournaments in Oneida that feature the Battle of the North versus South. Civil War. No, maybe it's a bad idea. That's a bad marketing plan, actually.
Yeah, I don't think we would do that. Yeah, no. I don't think that's a good one.
All right, well, that's yeah. I mean, it's a tough It's a tough conversation, but I do think it's a conversation we need to start having.
Part of it too, the fact that it is a tough conversation is because some of these leagues, like the CCL, have been solidified for so long.
Yeah.
So you have all those traditions, you have all those matchups, so on and so forth. So it's like people normally, and it's completely natural, it's just you're resistant to change. So we kind of get in our own way of installing this new change when it could be for the better. But who knows?
Absolutely. 100% agree. Now's the time to start thinking about it.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
But I think that's it for my points on the whiteboard.
It is. So we are going to get to the final point on the board, and I'm going to take it this time.
The final point!
My little gripe I have is, so for me, I do the scoreboard, PA, and music at the school I work at for the boys and girls varsity games for basketball. And the part that I always say this during the year, during the season, multiple times, is why are there these little technicality differences between the boys game and the girls game? It makes absolutely no sense. So here's some of my examples.
Preach, brother.
First one. Subbing on a free throw. Why do the girls have to sub before the first free throw, but the boys have to wait until the first free throw is attempted? If there is some legitimate reason, I want to know why. Because me, as the person that's working the game, like, I can see how that's confusing, but at the same time, it's annoying. But either way. Second one is the advancement rule. I don't really get it. Can you explain that? Why it's in girls but it's not in the boys?
So all of your gripes I think are also felt even tenfold by officials, because they get stuck in this weird middle ground of like officiating both, and then they have to remember which set of rules we're playing in this stupid way. Why is because we adopted the girls. Part of the reason is because the girls game ends up being the experiment. And so if the experiment works, then they think about bringing it to the boys game. Okay. So we go that route because we adopted parts of the NCAA rulebook. And the officials boards and the sections are the ones that decide that. So there are like voting members. There are representatives that are making those decisions on what rule book we're going to follow for that season. And then the state and the sections, the state can make decisions on how to modify those rules.
Right.
As a basketball coach, drives me nuts. I think it's the advancement rule. I use it because it helps me and my team. I think it's a dumb rule. I hate it in the NBA, and I hate it down here. You have a slim lead. Why do I get to call timeout and magically move the ball to half court?
Yeah.
The defense. You got to
one of the games you called a timeout to advance it, and you're like, as you're doing it, you're like, this is so stupid.
Yeah. Part of the game, if I'm the other team, like, come on, I need a chance to get a 10-second violation. I want the full court to try to turn the ball over. And now all of that's taken out of our hands because you called timeout.
Nope.
I think it's dumb. Anyway, back to you.
The other difference is in the girls' game, in the last minute of the fourth quarter, for every basket, if you're operating the clock, you got to stop it and then start it once it gets rebounded or inbounded back into play. Why? That makes no sense to me.
The only thing I'll say on that is I do like that rule. I just think it should be the same across boys and girls.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's just odd to me because I could see someone. I've done it where I work a boys game on a Tuesday night, and then I work a girls game Wednesday night, and I'm still in that boys game mentality. And like, what if I missed it by 2 seconds or whatever it is?
Right, and we don't have the luxury of the college sports to go to review.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the last difference is the shot clock. For the girls, it's 30. For the boys, it's 35. I don't understand what that 5 seconds makes in terms of a difference. Maybe it's just me not being educated enough or whatever on in terms of the sport of basketball. But for me, these little technicalities, in my opinion, just need to be uniform.
Yeah, there's no reason. That's why my dad has always said, and I firmly agree on this, one of the great things about soccer, the rules are the same across the board. There's no change.
Yeah.
Because there shouldn't be. It's the sport.
Right.
Why are we changing it? Now, the shot clock, I would assume, might be a attempt to like speed up the girls' game a little bit, but it's an unnecessary reason. There's no 5 seconds that isn't. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. And then you look at the college game, and they're playing men's college basketball is playing by their own rules. They literally have no similar rules to any other section of basketball that exists.
Right.
Every basketball across the world is played in 4 quarters, except in men's college hoops. We just do 2 halves. It's the weirdest things ever. It's a mess. Also, random thing to add onto your point, though. Opportunities to get paid, to work, sporting events are across the board, and I encourage everyone to get involved, whether it is officiating or all of these background gigs. I mean, I get paid to do PA announcing. I get to say who scores. I do starting lineups. It's great. We need people to run scoreboards. We need people to run shot clocks. We need people to do the book. All of those are paid positions at colleges, and they're all looking to hire. You can try to inquire and become a part of that, because it's an awesome way to get involved with sports and to make some side cash.
Yeah. You introduced me to the little crew that gets assigned, and I've done OCC games for basketball, for PA, the scoreboard. I've done Lemoyne for basketball, shot clock, and scoreboard. I've done Lemoyne boys and girls lacrosse, even though I'm not a lacrosse person. I've done OCC lacrosse. I've done OCC baseball. It's really, really just fun.
I get to go to
especially if you're a sports person.
Yeah, I get to go to a bunch of games I probably would have gone to anyway. I didn't have to pay money, and in fact, I made some.
Yeah, I find it a lot of fun. It's one of those things where you don't view it as work.
Yeah,
classic little cliche, but yeah, that's the end of my little rant there.
Nice. What's the last section called?
It is the breakdown.
The breakdown.
Jay was having some technical difficulties since
I think my camera's going to look very different right now. I think something overheated.
All right. So you need to name out of the 4 pro leagues, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, the 8 cities in the United States that only have one of these pro teams.
Okay. Sacramento. They have the Kings.
That is one. They got the Kings in the NBA.
San Jose.
That is one. They have the Sharks out of the NHL.
Does Portland? They have the Trailblazers.
I don't have them down.
I guess what are the 4? Do they have I don't know. Vegas now has 2, so that doesn't count.
Well, Portland actually should count because they don't have NHL or NFL. So yeah, so there's 9 then.
Okay, Magic. I mean, they have a soccer team, but is MLS considered in the 4?
No, I didn't include MLS.
Okay. Dallas has multiple cities. I need cities that's now that the Chargers moved away to San Diego.
Nope.
They have multiple. Poop. Since the Rams,
do you want the category?
Since the Rams moved away, is it St. Louis?
Nope, because they have the Blues.
The Blues, yeah. All that blues music in St. Louis confused me. There's not a lot there, guys.
You got 5 left. Or no, I'm sorry, 6 left.
Yeah.
Do Do you want the category of like how many NBA, NFL, NHL?
Sure.
Okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah,
No,
4.
Houston has the Rockets.
NBA.
But it's not Houston.
You got
San
4
Antonio.
NBA.
San
That's
Antonio.
one.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
So you got 3 NBA and 2 NFL.
3 NBA. See, I'm not great with NBA teams. Well, here's Charlotte.
Nope.
They have. I mean, they have more teams. I guess they're called Carolina. That's unfortunate. All right. Because that would also take away. Yeah, because like no. Man, I'm not doing so hot in this. Let's see. What states would that make sense in?
I feel like I'm surprised you're not getting these 2 NFL.
The 2 NFL teams. Arizona
Would you like a
lost
hint?
Arizona lost their team, right? Are the Cardinals one? Is it Arizona, like Phoenix?
No, I'm not going to count that.
Okay, because they used to have the Coyotes, but they moved. How about what about?
But you got the Phoenix Suns.
Oh, that's true. That's true. What about Utah? Now that the Salt Lake City team is there, was this was before that? Oh, Utah Jazz. Oh man. See, I suck with the NBA. I don't watch any NBA. I think the NBA is absolute trash. So I don't watch that at all.
Okay.
I feel like there's still more in California that I'm missing.
Nope.
No, I got all the California teams. That's not
You
good.
did.
I don't know cities. 2 NFL teams, huh?
1 NBA and 1 NFL is in Florida. Both of those are in Florida.
Jacksonville.
Yep, that's the other NFL.
Okay.
And
Jacksonville.
then there's 1 NBA in Florida that does not have another sports team.
Dolphins and the Heat exist.
Mm-hmm.
A Florida NBA team? Oh, man. That's not good.
Would you like a hint?
Sure. It's probably not even going to help.
Shaq started there.
What started?
Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal.
Shaq. That is not what I heard you say. All right. Orlando.
There you go.
All the Disney. All right. How many more do I need? I need 3.
2 NBA, 1 NFL.
2 NBA, 1 NFL. 2 NBA.
One of the 2 NBA is a somewhat recent new team, and then the NFL is like a legendary, one of the oldest NFL teams.
Green Bay, Wisconsin.
In the middle of the neighborhood.
Yeah, Milwaukee gets everything else that's up there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so 2 NBA teams. That's awful. The NBA is atrocious. I won't watch it. I don't even know if I could give you a breakdown of the teams because, like, the only ones that ESPN even talks about are the Lakers and the Celtics, and really they only talk about the Lakers even when they suck. So,
the logo for one of them is an animal that's big, and the nickname for the other one is a weather element.
You would think that would help, but I don't think it does. That's how bad I am at knowing the NBA. An animal and weather element, huh?
Uh-huh.
I don't even know the teams in the NBA well enough to even...
The animal, if you saw a paw print of the animal, it's got 5 pads. It's not 4.
Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, good clue. Wow, that is a very specific pull with the bear claw there.
I just saw the poster of my dog, and that just reminded me.
All right, so the Memphis Grizzlies, and then one more. That's a weather element, huh?
Uh huh.
Oklahoma City. All right.
There you go. I thought that was going to be the quickest one.
No, I'm terrible. I suck at the NBA. The NBA, I know nothing about them. I really do just watch college basketball. Nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
I don't even watch like the NBA finals. Nothing.
I don't either.
I think it's trash.
I might watch the Knicks like in the playoffs just because it's Madison Square Garden.
You know what's really embarrassing is I saw this video come up on that one group's podcast not that long ago. I think that's the only way I pulled out San Jose even in Sacramento first because I remembered that. But yeah, nothing else stayed.
That's awesome. Oh.
I failed miserably. It is not my day. All right, I have one for you. I'm going to give you a would you rather.
Okay.
You're going to have to rationalize this out for all of us to see.
Can you give me the category before you tell me what I'm deciding between?
I will tell you what you need to decide between. That is it.
Okay.
Okay. Would you rather? We're talking worlds to live in based off of movie franchises. Would you rather live in a world in which Jurassic Park was real or Ghostbusters was real?
Oh my god. I mean, talk about two totally different examples.
Both have their advantages and disadvantages.
Oh my god. Ghostbusters, I mean, that can be very complicated in itself.
Yeah,
I mean,
rationalize it out as you get to there and then come up to a decision. What you got? What are you thinking?
It's tough because, like, Ghostbusters is only a select few people you can call, right?
Also true.
You can only call the Ghostbusters.
Right.
Dinosaurs, super cool. Also, super scary.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these ghosts that Ghostbusters are hunting, can they hurt me? Sure. Can a dinosaur hurt me? Sure.
Yep.
Wow. This is tough. Ghostbusters, the ghosts, you can't see them until if they want you to see them.
You're getting slimed.
Yeah, possibly, if you got the right one.
Yeah. I mean, you're hoping for Slimer in that situation, to be honest.
True. I'm gonna say the Jurassic one, only because of the fact that they're in a centralized location. And like, yeah, it's super, super risky, which they've beaten to death in all of these Jurassic movies of the fact that they can break out.
They can even get off the island. I mean, the pterodactyls get off.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say the Jurassic one just because of the fact that, like, it is something that you can go see in terms of that entertainment, like going to a zoo.
Mm-hmm.
But it is kind of scary to think about the threat of them getting out. Maybe no pterodactyls. Only land animals.
Yeah, I think the only better part of a Jurassic Park world to live in is that, like, I think, like what you said, Ghostbusters is a small group of individuals that you would need to hope are in your area to solve your problem.
Right.
Versus, like, a gun might be able to take out a dinosaur.
A big one. You need a big one.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, like if you're in a Ghostbusters world and you got a problem, and your problem has already consumed you by the time they get there, like you're screwed.
True. Then again, getting eaten by, raptors. This was a recurring nightmare of my childhood, was getting hunted by dinosaurs. So I don't know if I agree with this answer. Jurassic Park did a number on me the first time I saw that in theaters.
I was obsessed with it growing up. Obsessed.
It was great. That first movie was so good.
And they just made another one too, where it's coming out.
Yeah, these are absolutely ridiculous at this point. But
it's like the Fast and Furious. It's like
the first one was so good, and the
special
Fast and
effects
Furious
commercial during the Super Bowl was perfect.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, let's just not be Fast and Furious. Can we just stop?
Yeah, that first one, the all the effects even stand the test of time because all the animatronics and stuff, they didn't rely on computer generated graphics. Still stands up. It's good.
Yep. I agree.
Alrighty. Well, we talked for more of this episode.
way more. But everyone's on break anyway, so you got more time to listen to it.
That's right.
Plus, this weather, you're going to be inside. Just put it on the TV, put it on your phone, whatever. Just watch it, and you're good. Or listen to it on Spotify, whatever it is.
So, you want to make this special announcement?
Oh, good thing you reminded me. We are going to have a surprise bonus episode this week when the girls and boys sectional brackets come out. We don't know for sure what we're going to do in terms of like content that we're going to talk about during that episode, but I would assume we're going to do something in terms of like, potential upsets, who are our picks, our favorites, what matchups are we most looking forward to. Did the B team get this one right before they even start playing? Just so on and so forth, just things like that. But look out for that. That's going to be when they release the brackets and make them public and everyone knows where they're going and who they're playing. So that will be directly after that.
Awesome. Yeah. Sectional time. Volleyball, you've wrapped up. Congratulations again to Sandy Creek and Mount Markham on great seasons. But the bigger congratulations to Beaver, River, and Cincinnatus for being our volleyball sectional champs for the winter volleyball season. Make sure to get those live bracket releases on Instagram and Facebook by following us at cny.sports. The CNY Sports Authority, small schools, big coverage. Thanks for joining us.
The whole